The dominance of big tech stocks seems only to intensify. Whether it's the proportion of the S&P 500 that is occupied by big tech companies, or the amount of advertising spend that is channeled to just a very few very big tech companies. Just for example, 80% of search engine driven advertising goes to Google. 85% of social media driven advertising goes to Facebook. It's clear the dominance of these few players has grown and grown and grown, and more authors are calling for regulatory actions. One of these is Giles Keating, who we have with us today. He has criticized this dominating monopolistic effect of big tech companies for a while. And what we saw with the Department of Justice this week announcing an antitrust case to Google is interesting to see what the investors thought of that. The stock price of Google didn't go down, as one might expect. It actually went up. My first question to Giles, why did the stock price go up following the announcement of an antitrust case?
I think it's pretty clear, Robert. I mean, it's telling us that the market doesn't believe this is going to damage Google's monopoly power. It's as simple as that. The market's saying whatever comes out, it just isn't going to be effective.
So, I mean, when you say monopoly power, a lot of people have been talking about the dominance of the tech industry, not just Google, perhaps also Facebook, etc., in society and in marketing. We recently had this film, The Social Dilemma. What's at the heart of the problem of this antitrust case?
To my mind, advertising. And that's where Google and now Facebook gets really the large bulk of its revenue. And really, the problem is that they're basically, in my view, in a sense, overcharging enormously for advertising because they're monopolists.
Can you elaborate that a little bit further? Because, I mean, advertising is always traded at a premium, and companies have always had to do marketing and advertising. What's the problem now?
Well, look, in the old days, Robert, as an advertiser, you could put your advert on any billboard, you could put it on any newspaper, wherever, or TV channel. Now you've got to be online, you've got to have people searching for you. And Google knows that. And they have an auction system designed, by the way, by incredibly clever economists, which basically pushes the price almost to the level where it takes away all the profit from making that a sale as a result of that ad. That's never been possible in the past.
Well, it's also an increase in efficiency, no?
Not at all, because of course, well, don't get me wrong, being able to do internet advertising is an increase in efficiency. I'm totally in favor of that. But to have all of the profit from that taken away from the companies that have actually made things and actually, invented things, and then give it all to just one company, that cannot be efficient.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. There are clearly a lot of societal costs as well. So what would, if this antitrust case seems not to be sort of the holy grail in terms of solutions, what do you think a solution could look like?
Well, a solution, which, by the way, I think could emerge from this antitrust case if the debate gets good enough, is some kind of two-stage auction process for the advert space. Now, look, smarter people than me can design this really well, but here's a straw man. What could happen is that every week, the available space on Google is split into 7 blocks and auctioned to 7 different people. It has to be 7 different people. Google can be one of them. And then those 7 people, those 7 companies have to then each try and sell that ad space to the actual advertisers themselves. And that way, something like that, I think, will make it a much fairer system. There'll still be lots of profit for Google, but it won't be as high an advert price for the people who are actually trying to sell their things.
Would that have to be a regulation?
Absolutely clear it would. As it were, the current market is no way going to produce that. And that regulation has to come from out of this justice case or some other regulatory mechanism. And I tell you, just simply, taking Google or giving people choice when they decide which search engine to use on their Android or whatever. That's not really the heart of the solution. It's got to be in the advertising area.
Yeah. And is it enough for this regulation to come from the US, or would the EU have to follow suit?
Oh, for sure, yes. Really, every jurisdiction has to. And I think the problem at the moment, that different countries are trying to regulate Google and Facebook in different ways. But of course, if the US does it, that's because that's the biggest market. I think you'll find, and if it's successful there, other people will follow.
Super. Giles, thank you for joining us today. This very interesting insights. We look forward to having you back soon.